You've tamed the voices in your head. You've put your courage to the test. Laid all your doubts to rest.
Hi everyone, welcome to the 11th episode of Intuitive Queens podcast. My name is Mara and I am your intuition queen. And today I have the pleasure to have with me Sofia Molnar, who is a healer, a teacher, and a life guide, which I like very much. Hello, Sofia, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, Sofia, tell me about your story, because I know you're Canadian, but you're now living in Japan, and there is a reason for it. So I'd love to know about you.
Oh, yeah, a lot of people come to Japan because they love manga or anime or something like that. I'm not that person. I did not dream about coming here, but I was living in Vancouver at the time, and I literally got a voice in my head that said, go to Japan, and it wouldn't stop. Like, it just wouldn't let up. And so I ended up listening to that voice. In many ways, it didn't make any sense. It made zero sense, actually, because, like I said, I didn't dream about it. I didn't figure I'd leave North America. And yet that voice was so insistent that I couldn't stop. I literally got on a plane and convinced my sister to come too. And we got on a plane together and we came over 21 years ago.
Wow.
So I've been here for 21 years. Yeah.
Amazing. So I guess it was kind of like a cultural shock when you got there because it's so different. So how was for you when you got there?
Yeah,
What were
it's
your
funny.
plans?
Well, okay, so my plan was, I came really thinking 1 year. I just need 1 year. I'll find myself and I'll make some money and then I'll go back to Canada. And when I got here, I actually didn't really have culture shock. I had price shock.
Okay.
I had a lot of other kinds of shock, but funny enough, not a lot of culture shock, which is a bit weird. But yeah, so my plan was for 1 year. I had a whole other thing planned out for after the year, and all of that evaporated. And so there was no reason for me to go back to Canada, not really. And so I ended up staying, wondering for the first 4 years what the hell I was doing here. Really wondering. But yeah, I had big reasons to be here ultimately. I just didn't know it at the time. So.
Okay. So what was your voice? Did you just follow the voice because the voice said Japan? How did you put that in action? Like, because I know for me, for example, I knew London was a thing because I had come here before and I just knew I had to be here. So I followed that voice, but I kind of knew before. So how was that for you? Is it like go to Japan? How did you choose the place? What was the process?
So it's interesting because I had never been to Japan. I had zero dreams to come to Japan. And so it was a time when Hong Kong was being returned to China. And so there was a lot of advertisements in the newspapers at the time looking for teachers. And the money, like for working in China at the time, I don't know if it's changed, but at the time it was like, holy, that's a lot. You're like, wow. And I connected with a man who was like a recruiter, and it turns out he couldn't help me with what my original question was, but then he started talking about Japan too. And so it was like, okay, all right. So he spent like a half hour on the phone, even though at my original question he couldn't help me with. And then it turns out that, yeah, Japan. And he led me to, we ended up meeting. And he pointed out that out of the 5 schools he was recruiting for, that this one school had the best, not only salary, but it had like great vacation and all the things. So I passed the test for that. They started sending me job things like, oh, you could work in Tokyo, you could work in all these other places, and I'm like, oh, Tokyo scares me, no. And I got offered the job that I ended up taking first time, and I said no to it the first time because I didn't know where the hell Munakato was. And it came back around about 3 weeks later, and I knew then that I had to take this job, that it was a gift from God, if you will. And that was, oh my God, I was so lucky because it ultimately proved to be the best thing for me. And so I listened to my intuition, and it was just, the voice was so insistent. Like, it was so matter of fact and insistent. It would not let up. I still am surprised sometimes that I got on the plane. Like,
That's
I
amazing.
was not the type to like, hey everyone. In fact, everyone told me, you're going to be back. There's no way this is going to work for you. And because I was not the girl that would do that.
And that's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. Okay, so you're supposed to stay there for a year, and then now you're talking about 4. What happens next?
So I've been there for like the first few months, and then broke up with my boyfriend who was living in Canada at the time. So that's when I knew I didn't have to go back, because that broke up, and the plans that were set for a year later, they disappeared. And so again, no reason to go back. So I stayed. And then I realized after the 4th year, like, I think I'm going to be here a while. So I need a bigger apartment. And I decided, because I was living in a 1K, like a 1 room with like a loft, and it was like really small. And I needed more space. So funny thing, I didn't know this, but we had a new student at my school where I was teaching. And I went to work one day, and I knew I was supposed to save this. And so I said, guys, I'm thinking of moving. I need a new place. And this new student said to me, oh my God, I have an apartment building, and there's an apartment available, and it's just down the road from the school. Now, I had been living about 20, 25 minutes by train away from where I was working. So I would be much, much closer. And I'm like, okay, here we go. The universe coming in to action again. And it turns out that my now husband, lived like 1 station from where I ended up living. Like, it's really interesting how all the pieces just sort of came. So I moved to a bigger space because I knew I had no reason again to go home. I still didn't know what I was doing here, not really. But moved, that felt better. And then that would have been 2002. And then 2003, like, I manifested my husband. So, yeah.
You manifested your husband. Tell us about your manifestation, because I love those stories. Your manifestation, how did that happen?
So I had been going out with some friends over the summer vacation. I was going into town, into the big city in Fukuoka City. I've been meeting a lot of like not desirable people in terms of dating, and I got really frustrated. And so I came home one night. It was a Thursday. I remember it was in August 2003, and I banged my fist on the table, and I looked up and I said, "That's it. Like, I'm ready to meet him." And the next day I went online. So there's in Fukuoka, there is like an online place, and there's a mini magazine for foreigners. And so I went online, and they had, at the time, I don't know if they still have it, but they have like a friends or, meeting people section. And this guy had posted, he was looking for a foreign girlfriend. Now, this is intuition working, because it made no sense. 5 years younger than me, totally into sports and baseball. Like, I don't give 2 hoots about baseball and all these things. But I mean, I just said, all right, I'm gonna, answer this guy. Turns out he lived literally 1 stop over from where I am. And this is like for a magazine for like Fukuoka City, which is 30, 35 minutes from where I live. Like, he could have lived anywhere up to 2 hours from where I was, but he lived 1 stop from where I was. And the night before, so we communicated online, like email and stuff, for about a week, and then we met. But the night before, this is so funny, I was a mess. I was like ready to vomit. Like, I called my mom, and she's like, who is this? Because this is not my daughter. And she said to me, he's the one.
Oh.
And she was so right.
Wow.
So right. And within 2 months, we were living together.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Yeah.
And the funny thing is, his family is quite traditional, but they paid for him to go to university in the States, and so I thank them a lot, because for being so traditional, that was really outside of their comfort
Oh
zone.
yeah.
But because he could speak English, that's how we met. So and that's how it worked. So I thank them a lot for
Oh my
that.
God, that is fantastic. That is amazing. You're still together after 20 years?
Oh no, we're 16. We've been together 16 years, married for 10. That's 16
Wow.
years. Yeah.
Okay, all right. This is fantastic. I just love this conversation. So okay, so you meet him, and I guess that area of your life starts to back in place, and you start to feel happy about it. What's
Mhm.
going on in your professional life then?
So yeah, so I was still I mean, I'm technically still teaching. That's another story. But I was teaching at the time. But my belief at the time was that at one point or another, my boss was going to retire, and then what am I going to do? And so okay, so backstory. Okay, so I was working at a yochen, or a nursery school, part-time, but they fired me because I was making way too much money, and they had to restructure their whole system.
Oh wow.
So I look back at that though as a thankful, like with thanks,
Mm.
because it was killing me. It was an hour and a half one way to get there, and an hour and a half back, and then I still was teaching at my, like, the regular school, and I would not have given it up. The money was too good, but it was slowly killing me. So them letting me go was an awesome thing. I didn't know it at the time. It was devastating. But it started me on the track of my own business. So shortly after that, we started a business, but it didn't work because it was in Japanese, and my husband had to do most of the work, and I'm someone who likes some control, to put that mildly. So that led to me starting a business, and I had it for 12 years. I just closed it actually this March.
Mhm.
So from Japan with Love. So that was my backup plan. Like, that was, I really thought, okay, so when when my boss retires, like, this is what I'm going to do. And for a long time, it was great. It was bringing in lots of money. It was doing, like, I mean, I felt really good doing it.
Mm.
And so that kept me going for many years, until 2016. And then I started to, well, let's say non-action speaks volumes, right? So I was spinning my wheels. But even with that story, even with that, this is really funny. So I started out, because we were selling products. So I had, like, we have a big closet in our, it's a Tammy room, but like in our living room, let's say. And so I started with products just in there. And then as we needed more space, the owners of the building, who were no longer my friends, long story, sold. And I reached out to the owners, the new owners, and they gave me this special little room that they had. So we started in there. And then as soon as I was like, oh, I need more space, the apartment downstairs opened up, and we immediately phoned. I mean, literally, like, within the next couple of days of me saying, I need more space,
So
they came
that's what you
upstairs to,
need to do, Sophia. You just need to talk to the universe and just say things like, I need this.
exactly, because that's sort of how it happened. I mean, they came up down. It's a traditional thing where you give a going away gift. So they gave us a gift, which means we knew they were leaving, and we immediately called the owners and were
Mm.
like, we want that apartment. So that held all of our stuff for a long time, all of our products and our shipping and, like, all the things we needed. But 2016, I realized that this just wasn't, but I was too scared to look at that question. It's a big question, right?
Mm.
That was my
Yeah.
dream. That was my backup plan. But a friend started suggesting, coaching and different things. And I started, I guess it planted a seed in a way.
Mm. Because you said to me that
Yeah.
when you were in Canada, you were also doing you did some healing courses. Was that not something that was on your mind in your first few years in Japan? Is something that you left completely apart?
It's the really weirdest thing. I don't know how to explain this except to say, like, when I came to Japan, so I have them here, my original deck of cards that I would use. I don't know, I guess they'd be more Oracle cards. I brought two different decks with me, and I would, use them with some friends. And I did do I did healing courses and things like that in Canada. But it's almost like when I came to Japan, like a veil went over me. Like,
Mm.
I still used my intuition. Obviously, I was still doing, like, without it being a big deal, I would still, manifest things. But it's, if someone had asked me directly a question, like, did you do healing work? Or I could have said, yeah, I would have answered it. But it's almost like there was just this small, like, veil that I couldn't really see past. So when I
Mm.
started back in this, it was like everything, like the veil lifted, and I was like, oh
Amazing.
yeah, I used to
That's
do
what
all
I
that.
used to do. And now, okay.
It was weird. It was weird. Yeah.
So how did that happen? How did you wake up again?
Well, I mean, so I hadn't put it away completely. Obviously, I was seeing my own spiritual healer, and obviously doing manifesting, and I believed in woo and all the things. But
You were good at manifesting from what you just told
yeah,
us.
yeah, I mean, some of the things have been pretty amazing, but yeah. So a friend had suggested coaching, and I had looked into it years ago, but I thought it meant like I would have to like go to the States or go to Canada and like live there and do like an in-person coaching, like a traditional life
Yeah.
coaching, right? And I'm like, I can't. I live here. This is where my money is. I couldn't work in the States if I went there. Like, there's all these things. So I just sort of put it aside. And then 2017, I joined some Facebook groups, and I guess it just started the ball rolling. Like, I'm like, oh my God, like, look at all these groups and look at these people, and I love this, and this is amazing. And I started playing with Oracle cards. So 2017,
How many decks did you have?
at the time, including the original 2 that I brought, I probably had, so I guess 2017 I started playing. So I might have had 4 or 5 decks, maybe. Yeah, this is at the end of 2017. So now I have 50 decks in my hands, like right near me. I have 50 decks. Yeah,
For
it's
who doesn't know, Sophia does card reading, and how I discovered her was through her Facebook group. Oh, actually, you probably were on another group, and then I joined your group.
maybe,
And
yeah,
I
probably.
was just mesmerized by the fact that you were changing deck based on the energy, because I was doing, I'm interested in energy, and I have done a lot of practices, and but that thing was something I had no idea existed, and she got me hooked, because I was like, what is this thing? Oh my God. And she was like, I have this many decks and this is my new deck. I'm like, what? I don't have that many. I only have 10. Okay, go ahead. I had to explain this.
No. Yeah, that's something that throws a lot of people when I do card readings in different groups.
Because it's amazing, because you really get it right.
Yeah.
And you're just doing that through someone commenting. You don't even see the face of the person. Person just
No,
says,
and
yes, I love a card, and you just pick it up.
yeah, and so I choose the deck based on the person's energy. And I mean, usually I suppose with 50 decks, I've pulled, like I pulled cards last night in my group for just over an hour, and I probably had 16 or 17 of those decks on my like open, and it's I really should take a picture, because it's like this mountain of like the boxes and like all the cards out. But some people I use the same deck for, but like yeah, if I feel the need to pull another deck out, I will. So I don't know how to not do that.
No, I think it's amazing when you do it at distance, because I know personally that I feel the energy of the people that I meet. I feel the energy if I walk into a room. I'm never sure. Maybe I don't know if maybe because I don't trust myself enough to do it online. Let's say this way. But I know that I can do it personally, but I was just mesmerized with this. I was like, oh my God, I love this.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions about how do you do that? I'm like, it pops in my mind which deck is for that person, so I don't ignore that, Yeah.
No, that's amazing. And I guess, what have you, okay, ask the question properly. Was this always part of yourself, or do you think this is because you studied healing and energies and it comes easier for you?
So I grew up in a kind of woo family, in the sense that my mother and my grandmother believed, it was called the occult back in the 70s. And I didn't study it as much as it was talked about. I didn't use cards until in my early 20s, maybe. So the 90s, the early 90s, when I got my first deck. And this is the funny thing. When I started again using cards and using these cards, not the ones from the 90s, I didn't trust myself at first either. Like it was what I would get was amazing, and just like, what? This can't be right.
Yeah.
And so I started with going into groups. I had permission. I had some relationship. I did a 111-day challenge. For 111 days, I pulled cards for people that I didn't know, or that I knew. That was okay too. But it would be, I would take a picture of the card and I would type it out. So I would be at the computer typing with tears streaming down. I wasn't crying, but the energy was just coming through me from the guides and information that I was just, so when I believed in, but I had trouble translating that. Like I thought, would it work the same if I did it live in my group, if I'm just doing it this way? Ultimately, it came down to, and this is what I tell my clients in courses or in person, you got to trust. You have to trust what you see, feel, hear, and know. You just do. And that's ultimately what I had to do for myself.
And I think that's the most difficult part, is not actually feeling it. It's trusting that what you feel or what you hear makes sense, is true, and it will make sense for the person you're doing it for. Yeah.
So I think for me, this is just, I've always been somebody that people have come to for answers, for talking to. My whole life, it's been about helping women. I thought it was going to be a more traditional way, really, when I was in university. I've been open to it, and so it's not that it was 100% easy, but it's just one of my gifts. I think we all have them, but we might have different ones. This is one of mine. Yeah. And
you don't only do card reading. You do inner child healing and a lot more. You tell us everything that you do, because I know some of the things that you do, but I don't want to miss out, because I know you do cord cutting, which I have experienced myself, and it's fantastic. But I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about everything that you do, because they're so important for each and every one of us, that reason why things don't happen is because they don't take action. Yes, that is one part, but there is a lot of energetic blocks that is nothing to do with our mind, but it just needs to be worked, because it's in us, and it comes probably from other things that you will tell us about. Yeah. So, before I did all the Facebook groups and different things, so I had been working with a healer myself. And in the later years, it's sort of, I guess I picked up a lot and was open to it. And I did some of my own work as well, because of working with her, and she would guide me, for working with myself as well, because it's, I don't want to be someone that someone comes to and just like going to a doctor for a pill. It's a team, right? Yeah. So that's how it was with me and my healer, and still is. I still work with her. And anyway, so a friend of mine, I was trying to tell her how to cut cords with this ex-boss of hers, one of my best friends. And I'm explaining the whole thing, and she's like, I can't do it. I'm like, I don't understand. She's like, I can't visualize it. I'm like, you work in interior design. Of course you can visualize it. She's like, no, I can tell you where the sofa is going to fit, but like, I cannot visualize this. And in that moment, I both heard and saw, it was like a little sign that popped into my head this way, and a voice this way that said, you can do this. And I'm like, apparently I can do this. Are you okay with that? She's like, yes, if you can do this, please go in and do all the things. So I did.
and it worked. And I'm like, hot damn, like I can do this
Wow.
apparently. And so that kind of is what started this. And so this was last year. And since then, I mean, even up to last week, because like, as you trust your intuition, as you work it, use it, and your gifts, they open up and things shift. And so even up to last week, things have shifted again. And I'm able to go deeper with the client. So yeah, I do inner child work. And with that, it's like almost like a mini package, because I actually guide women to meet their inner child. And I've done one even where we've done 2 different ages for messages and, answering and asking questions. And then I go in and I do the cord cutting, but then of course it's not just a cord cutting, right?
Okay,
So then I go into,
let me explain what the inner child is and the cord cutting is, because I don't know if anybody knows, but actually, if you don't mind you explaining the inner child and the cord cutting, what that entails, because I know there are a lot of people that understand this, but there are also a lot of people who are like, what the hell are you talking about?
Sorry, yes. Okay, so inner child. So this is, and I don't think there's just one age. This is my personal belief. This is because I've done it myself and I've worked with clients this way. Certain points in our life where trauma or, and it doesn't have to be always big trauma. That's what some people think, like it has to be big. No. Yes, it can be abuse, where you have an age where something traumatic for you happened. And there's that part sort of stuck at that point where the pain continues, and it can really hold us back. Fear of success, fear of failure, fear of people, seeing us, like lots of different things can come from this point. And so there can be multiple ages where things happened.
And they can come also from what people tells you, and doesn't have to be, as you said, abuse or, being neglected by your parents. It doesn't have to be that. But someone can just say to you, you are too loud, or things like this. And they get stuck in every part of your body, from your mind to your actual body, your energy. And then you will feel the consequences once you grow up, when you need to use that part of yourself. So this is what the inner child is. So you feel like you cannot, for example, change job or get to do that certain thing because something within you is stuck and you have no idea what it is, where it is, and how you can work around that, because there is an energetic block that comes from that particular situation. That could be years or just things that have been told.
Yeah, and I do have clients that come to me and say, I know exactly what I need to do. I know exactly, and I'm not doing it. Why? Okay, let's take a look, right? So yes, it does not have to be just abuse or something big. It can be, and it can even be, as kids will hear something and will take it to mean something that it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
And so, whatever it is for you, it's a point in time where there's some stuckness, there's energy blocks, there's beliefs, outdated beliefs, wrong beliefs, etc.
Yeah.
And so that's part of that work. And an energetic cord is literally like a cord between you and another person, you and a thing, you and a situation, you and so for example, with abuse, sometimes, this is my experience with clients, the abuse can become its own thing, separated from the person. So when I go in and I cut both the cord between them and the abuse, and them and the person who did it. So it can become like sort of take on its own energy. And so these are energetic cords. So for example, with a person, then it's like, I mean, I'm sure we've all had this feeling where you think about somebody and then suddenly they call, that kind of thing, right? It's that we feed off of each other. Now, in many cases, like with loved ones, even with loved ones, this is the funny thing, with myself personally, my relationship with my husband got better after I started cutting cords with myself every single night. Because of the work I do, I cut cords every single night, including my husband. Some people will not cut between loved ones. Now, what it does is it drains that stress away. It takes away the stress. It like refreshes
Yeah.
those relationships that you have with people on a regular basis. But it releases that energetic connection, especially from somebody in your past. And I don't just leave it at that. Some people just cord cut. That's not good enough. You need to go in. I go in then and look at what chakras are affected. And then, and I'm, as you know, I talk as I do it. So,
Yeah.
so the client can see, feel, hear everything that I'm doing. And what often happens is as I'm pulling, because I pull things out of people. So for example, a client was, it was about her husband, and she was keeping track of stuff in a book. And I said to her, I'm pulling out this book and this is what I'm seeing in the book. And she's like, oh my God, how do you know that?
Wow.
And she's like, it's not a book, it's on my computer, but it's exactly what you're talking about. Everything that you've just mentioned that was in it is in this file. And so these are things that we, that keep us down, that hold us down, that
because
block
that's where
energy.
our energy is. We focus on that thing, and therefore that thing becomes like a physical thing that blocks us to move forward.
Exactly. And so I tend to pull out a lot of different things for different people. But some of them act as anchors. Some of the books are anchors, rules that they're supposed to live by according to generations of, family members, and, all kinds of things come out. And so I mention everything that I do. So I go through and I sort of cleanse and work on all the chakras. And sometimes we do work where they're placing their hands on chakras, repeating statements to see how it feels.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different work. So I clear all that out before sort of sealing and healing, where the cords went into the body as part of that. So it's amazing how the energy shifts. Now, it is not
absolutely.
a magic wand.
No, I can say this, and I can say another thing about this, because I remember that the reason why I asked you was because, and I do a lot of personal work with myself. I have a lot of friends that do different kind of practices. So there is always someone that I can talk to or I can ask to, and I ask a lot of questions to myself. So I do coaching to myself. So I'm very much aware, but I got to a point where, at the beginning of the year, where I was like, there is something that I feel it's blocking me and I cannot figure out what it is. And that's when I got in touch with you. And after you did the core cut, I'm like, okay, wow, that is something I can never think about. I would have never gone that far back. I would have never associated my block to that person. And I would have never done it by myself. But what happened after is I felt like, you remember I told you, I feel like I can now breathe much more, because you really have something like energetically, it really takes up space, like physical space in your body. So that really frees you up for whatever it is. But of course, then you need to do your bit and work. It's not that after Sofia does her job, then you just continue to do what you were doing. No, you need to work on that, and you need to make sure you take care of yourself, and you take action to make sure that you continue to release that whatever situation or whatever that is.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and I make sure to mention this to people. It's not a magic wand. It doesn't mean that your life is now fairies and butterflies and all the things. And it is teamwork. Like, I often will recommend, and I'll give journal prompts if they're needed, the I am statements and those kinds of things, and some sort of homework, if you will, for people to continue that. And then when they're ready, if they're ready and they want to work with me again, then they can come back. I mean, I've been working with my healer for 16 years, on and off. And because life, it's a process, right? Like the whole thing is a process. But every time you shift, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing what opens up.
It's amazing. And you're right when you say, I don't think it ever ends for you to learn something new. Life happens. And once you release something, yes, you move forward, but then there might be something else. Just because the more you go on in your life and the more you want to reach other goals, the more some other maybe fears or limiting beliefs will come up. But also life happens So, you know, things happen to you. You lose your job, you lose someone that you love, you break up with your boyfriend, you change country and you're not happy, or anything, could be anything. And then all of a sudden you start to feel in a certain way because energy gets stuck. And if you don't know what to do, then it's difficult to release and move forward. So yes, there is always something to learn and something to heal. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, I just make sure to stress that so that people know that I'm not the doctor with a pill, the one
Yeah.
pill that will cure their everything, right? Yeah.
No, and you also need to look after yourself and make sure that you really work on your personal development and spiritual development all the times, because, you know, otherwise, as you said, well, you take a pill from the headache and then you have it a week after. So
Yeah, exactly.
okay. All right. Um, is there anything else that you do? I think we cover pretty much everything. Or
Yeah, so okay, yeah, so that's the healing. So I do the inner child, but I also do, so that's the process. And the process is the same in terms of energy work, cord cutting with inner child work. So I have sort of two streams. If people know they want to do inner child, it's this. If they don't, so then I have another version where we will still do a guided meditation. It might not be an inner child one, but it might be something else that's really important to whatever is happening in their life. So there's a guided meditation, and then of course the cord cutting and the energy healing. And so then I do coaching as well, of course. And I mean, I coach, you know, just through the work that I do anyway in my group or whatever, I'm you know, is coaching. But yes, people do work with me for coaching, and I have, like, for example, journal coaching that I do, and I'm about to launch a number of things. I also have courses, the Loving You course in January. I'll be doing that again. In October, I'm launching a membership group. And so in that group, I'll be able to do more deep diving. There's going to be guest speakers. We're going to do mini courses, guided meditations, group healings, lots of fun things that that I want to be able to offer. But instead of doing little things here and there, it'll be all housed in the membership group. So I'm excited about that. And in November, I am launching the Loving You Money Edition. So it's a 1-month course on money, because we all have blocks on money.
oh my God, don't tell me that.
And it's one of the most requested, that and chakra work. I'll be doing a chakra course next spring. But it needs time. Like, it's also a bigger course. So, but the money course, I get asked all the time when we're talking about blocks.
Yeah, money is a big thing
blocks.
Because, as you know, it's related to self-worth. So it's not just a money thing. There is so much attached to money that, of course, everybody, and then we need money to live. Aside from buy things that we like and go on holiday and everything else, but it's just like a basic need to have money. Amazing. That is amazing. And where can we find you if people want to get in touch with you or get on to your services? Where can we find you?
So I am going to be launching my website. It's not launched yet. I think it says coming soon, but it's sofiamolnar.com. That I'm hoping to be up by the beginning of the year, if not earlier.
Okay.
I've just so many things going on right now. But I have my group, Wake Up Your Woo, which is a free group for women. And I have my business page as well, Sofia Molnar Intuitive Life Guide. And so through Facebook business page, you can reach me there, or you can join my group, and eventually actually see my web page. But
okay. Well, in the meantime, our listeners and people watching can go on Facebook, and then at some point keep having a look at the website if you don't have Facebook, and Sofia will be there at some point and you can get in touch. But I'm pretty sure you have an email address for people that are not on Facebook, because I know there are a lot of people that are not on Facebook necessarily. So it just, if they want to ask you questions or just get in touch with you.
Yes, you can reach me at wakeupyourwoo@gmail.com.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. Well, I think we got to the end of this, and it's been an amazing pleasure for me to have you here, Sofia. Before we go, I'd like to ask you if you have an advice for women that might feel stuck or might feel they want to change their life, but they're too afraid to do it. Like you talked about how you just flew to Japan because a voice told you to. I moved to London because something told me that's where you need to be. So for us that we are intuitive by nature, it's a little bit easier to do that, but some people not necessarily are. So what is your advice for people like that have that need to want to do but too afraid?
I'll tell you something that happened to me before I would have. I mean, even though I grew up kind of woo in a way, one thing that really changed the way I looked at my life was, and I don't know where this came from, to be honest. I was in my 20s, and ultimately what it was is I had this sort of vision of being in my 90s and looking back at my life and knowing that I would regret if I didn't do some of these things that I was thinking about at the time. And so for me, that changed how I looked at things. Like if I thought that I would regret this, then I knew I had to do it, because it is the things that we don't do that we end up regretting. And fear is not, I've had clients say to me, well, when the fear goes, I'll do it. And I'm like,
good luck.
Yeah, because you're not going to do anything then, because the fear is there to keep you safe and small, to keep you in your comfort zone, because it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't. So change and growth happens when you step outside your comfort zone. And one of the best ways to do that is through action. Action itself helps to quiet, or a little bit make it quiet, the voice. The voice is your ego. It's just doing its job. It's not evil. It's not, it's doing its job. And if you can understand that it's just there trying to keep you from jumping off a cliff, because it does not know the difference between jumping off a cliff and going on a date with a new person or starting a business or any of the things. So if you can sort of distance yourself a little bit from that and go, oh, okay, it's just my ego talking, trying to keep me safe. And then just start taking baby steps. And that's the other thing. Like, okay, yeah, I'm quitting my job. But I took a million steps before this one. So for some people, you may see, oh my God, they quit their job and they're doing all these amazing things. But they don't talk about all the little baby steps they took to get there. So don't compare yourself like that.
Don't compare,
do
that's
any step forward. Just keep taking steps forward, and you will get there. Yeah,
I absolutely agree. And I've taken the step, but I know there have people like, oh my God, you're doing amazing. And I'm like, yeah, but I come from a lot of frustration, a lot of work on myself, and a lot of planning and thinking, and a lot of mistakes in the process. So yeah, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely perfect. Okay, well, Sofia, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank
It's
you.
been great.
And for everybody that is watching or listening, I hope you enjoyed. If you want to get in touch with Sofia, every detail will be in the notes if you're listening, and it will be on the screen if you're watching on YouTube, and in the notes as well, so you can always get in touch with her. If you missed that, you can always get in touch with me and I will direct you to her. Just go to theintuitionqueen.com or email me at hello@theintuitionqueen.com and I will send you to whoever you need to talk to. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something, and I hope we inspired you to take a leap of faith into yourself and do what the things that you really want to do, but you're too afraid to do. Thank you, and see you next week. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Sofia.
Bye.
Your mind is clearer than before. Your heart is full and wanting more. Your future's at the door.